The vibration of my phone snapped me out of the dull hum of the airport lounge. I glanced down, expecting another work email, but the sender's name made my chest tighten. Mrs. Coleman, my new neighbor. Lauren, I don't want to worry you. The message read, but your driveway is packed with cars. Looks like a party. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest. Tell me in the comments. Below, we read every comment. Let's begin. My stomach flipped. I had closed on the house just 2 weeks ago. Nobody, not even my family, knew I bought it. I'd been saving the reveal for when I got back from this trip. With shaking hands, I opened the security app. My throat went dry as the live feed loaded. Music thumped from the backyard speakers. Lights were strung across the porch. On the patio, Jason, my brother, raised a beer high. His other arm wrapped around our cousin like this was his celebration. Inside, I spotted Megan, my sister, clinking glasses as if she owned the place. My mother, Linda, was perched at the kitchen island, laughing with a wine glass in hand. And my father, Thomas, was holding court in the living room, telling old stories like this was his house. My pulse hammered as I swiped to the next camera. My brand new sofa, untouched until now, was buried under muddy shoes and greasy plates. Bottles littered the counters. Someone had even left a stain across the rug I picked out myself. Heat burned up my throat, equal parts rage and betrayal. These were the same people who told me I'd never get it together, who sneered when I said I was saving for a house. They called me reckless, irresponsible. And now they were partying in the home I worked for. I could almost hear their voices mocking me. Lauren, you'll never manage on your own. And here they were, drinking, laughing, living it up in the very proof that I could. I clenched my jaw, teeth grinding. I couldn't get there in time, but I didn't need to. I opened my messages and typed just 4 words to my husband. They're in the house. The dots appeared instantly. His reply was short, sharp. On my way. My eyes locked on the feed. 10 minutes later, headlights swept across the driveway. The front door creaked open, and Daniel stepped inside. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The room froze the second they saw him. Jason's beer slipped from his hand. Megan's smirk faltered. My father's story died on his lips. My mother blinked. The laughter drained from her face. Daniel's eyes scanned the room like steel. Calm, steady, dangerous. He was the storm they hadn't seen coming. And as I sat miles away, watching the camera feed, my lips curled into a cold whisper meant only for me. Now let's see them explain this. The silence was deafening. The music still thumped faintly from the backyard speakers, but no one dared move as Daniel Mitchell stepped into the living room. He closed the door behind him slowly, the soft click echoing like a gunshot. Jason was the first to find his voice, though it cracked mid-sentence. Daniel, hey man, what are you doing here? Daniel's eyes narrowed, scanning the mess. Plates balanced on my brand new sofa. Mud tracked across the polished wood floors. A half-empty bottle of bourbon leaned dangerously against the coffee table. He didn't answer Jason right away. Instead, he bent down, picked up a greasy plate from the couch cushion, and held it in his hand. You know, he said quietly, his voice calm but razor-sharp, Lauren hasn't even sat on this couch yet. The words sliced through the air. Megan shifted uncomfortably, clutching her glass tighter. My father, Thomas, cleared his throat, trying to mask his unease with forced bravado. Daniel, don't be dramatic. We're just celebrating a little. Families should be able to enjoy themselves in each other's homes. Daniel's jaw tightened. Each other's homes? He stepped closer, his voice rising just enough to slice through the room. Funny, Thomas, because last I checked, this house doesn't belong to you, or Megan, or Jason, or anyone else standing here. Linda finally spoke, her voice sharp, defensive. What's your problem? We didn't see Lauren here, and the place looked empty. It's not like she even told us about it. Daniel's lips curved into something that wasn't a smile. Exactly. She didn't tell you. Because she knew this is exactly what you'd do. The tension was suffocating. Jason shoved his hands into his pockets, glancing nervously at Megan, who refused to meet Daniel's eyes. My father's face darkened, like he'd been personally insulted. Look, Daniel, Thomas said, his voice booming now. You don't get to walk in here and lecture us. Lauren wouldn't even have this place if it wasn't for the way we raised her. She owes this family more than you think. Daniel stepped forward until he was inches from Thomas, his voice low and steady, dangerous in its restraint. She doesn't owe you a damn thing. She worked for this. She bled for this. While you sat around calling her reckless and useless, she was saving every penny. And now, when she finally proves you wrong, you all barge in like vultures. I watched from my phone screen, my heart racing as if I were right there in the room. I'd never seen Daniel like this, controlled, firm, but every word carrying the weight of fire. Megan tried to break the tension with a mocking laugh, though her voice wavered. Come on, Daniel, it's just a party. Why are you acting like we committed a crime? Lauren always overreacts, and you're no different. His head snapped toward her. Overreacts? His voice cut like steel. You're standing in a house. That isn't yours. Drinking wine you didn't buy. Stomping mud on floors you never cleaned, and you're calling her dramatic. Megan's smirk vanished. She looked down, her face pale. Then Daniel did something no one expected. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and held it up. My face appeared on the display. Say hello, he told them. Their eyes widened as they saw me on the video call, watching every second of their trespass. I didn't speak right away. I let the silence simmer, let their discomfort spread like wildfire. Finally, I said, So, whose house is this again? Jason muttered. Lauren, come on, we didn't mean anything by it. Didn't mean anything? My voice cracked through, the speaker, heavy with fury I'd held back for years. I've been saving for this house while you all laughed in my face. Every time I skipped family dinners, every time I picked up an extra shift, every time I said no to stupid spending, it was for this. And now that I finally have something of my own, you break in and treat it like a playground? Thomas scowled. Don't twist this, Lauren. We were just— No, I snapped, my voice trembling with rage. You weren't just anything. You were proving every reason why I kept this a secret. Because you don't respect me. Because you've never respected me. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the speakers. Daniel broke it, his tone final, decisive. You all need to leave, now. Jason tried to protest. But now, Daniel repeated, his voice dropping lower. Before I make a call you won't like. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. And they knew it. Slowly, reluctantly, they began to move. Megan set her glass down with shaking hands. Jason muttered, under his breath, but didn't meet the camera again. Linda tried to whisper something to Thomas, who simply stared at Daniel like he wanted to fight, but knew he'd already lost. One by one, they shuffled toward the door, their faces pale, their confidence gone. As the last of them stepped outside, Daniel turned the camera so I could see the wreckage they left behind. Plates stacked high, stains across the rug, bottles tipped over. My chest tightened, fury and pain swirling together. Daniel's voice softened as he lifted the phone closer. Don't worry, Lauren. I've got this. I exhaled shakily. For the first time in hours, I believed him. But deep down, I also knew. This wasn't over. Tonight was just the beginning. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table of my hotel suite, my laptop open, phone buzzing non-stop. My family had left at least a dozen messages overnight. voicemails laced with excuses, half-hearted apologies, and some dripping with entitlement. Megan's voice was sharp in one of them. "Lauren, you're being dramatic. It was just a party. Stop making a scene. You know family comes first." Jason's was defensive. "I don't see why you're so upset. We were just trying to enjoy the place before you ruined it with your rules." But the one that stung most came from my father. His gravelly voice carried that old, familiar edge. "Lauren, you've always been selfish. If you didn't want us there, you should have said something. Don't act like this house makes you better than the people who raised you." My hands trembled as I hit pause. Raised me? Those words hit harder than any of the others. Raised me to believe I wasn't enough. Raised me to think success was only valid if they approved. Raised me to feel guilty for wanting anything of my own. I shut the laptop, heart pounding, when Daniel walked in with 2 coffees. He set one in front of me, studying my face. "They've been calling, haven't they?" I nodded. "Non-stop." "They're not sorry, Daniel. Not really. They're just angry I finally drew a line." He leaned against the counter, arms folded, eyes steady. "Then it's time we show them that line can't be crossed again." I looked up at him, unsure. "How?" His lips curved into that same calm, dangerous smile I saw on the cameras last night. "By reminding them that this isn't just a house. It's yours. And no matter what they say, you're the one with the power here." His words echoed in my chest, stirring something fierce inside me. I'd hidden my victories before, afraid of ridicule, afraid they'd try to tear them apart. But last night had proven the truth. Hiding only gave them the illusion of control. Not anymore. That afternoon, I returned home. My stomach knotted as I pulled into the driveway, seeing the faint tracks from where all their cars had been. Daniel was right behind me, his presence a shield. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The smell of stale alcohol still hung in the air. Dried stains marred the rug. My once pristine kitchen counters were sticky with rings of spilled wine. I stood there, staring at the mess, and something inside me snapped. This wasn't just about a party. This was about every moment they dismissed me. Every time they told me I was reckless. Every sneer when I said I'd make it on my own. I turned to Daniel, my voice steady but burning with resolve. "I'm not cleaning this up." He raised a brow. "What do you mean?" I picked up my phone and began typing. A group message to all of them. "You left my house a mess. If you want any chance of stepping foot here again, you'll be the ones cleaning it. Tomorrow. Every single one of you. Otherwise, the locks get changed and you'll never cross this threshold again." I hit send before doubt could creep in. The responses came almost instantly. "Megan, you're kidding, right? You can't just boss us around like that." Jason, "Lauren, don't push this too far." My mother, Linda, "Sweetheart, don't make this ugly. We'll come by another time, maybe bring dinner." But then my father's message appeared, curt and venomous. "You don't order this family around. You think a mortgage makes you powerful? You're still that same foolish girl." I showed the screen to Daniel. His jaw tightened. "Then, tomorrow," he said quietly, "we make sure they learn exactly who you are now." The next day, I opened the front door at noon sharp. One by one, they arrived. Jason first, muttering under his breath. Megan with her arms crossed in defiance. Linda avoiding my eyes. And finally Thomas, his expression carved in stone. The air was thick with hostility as they stepped inside. Jason glanced around the mess and scoffed. "This is ridiculous." "No," I said, my voice cutting through the room like glass. "What's ridiculous is thinking you could disrespect me, my home, and everything I've worked for, without consequence. You made this mess. You're going to clean it." Megan threw her hands up. "You're seriously going to make your own family scrub floors like we're strangers?" Daniel stepped forward, his voice calm but loaded with warning. Strangers treat her better than you do. The words hit them like a slap. Jason went pale. Linda opened her mouth, then closed it again. Thomas's face flushed with anger, but even he hesitated. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, Megan picked up a trash bag, her hands trembling. Jason muttered curses under his breath as he began stacking bottles. Linda sighed heavily, grabbing paper towels. And finally, Thomas bent down with a rag, his pride cracking under the weight of silence. I stood there, arms folded, watching. For once, they weren't the ones in control. For once, they couldn't spin the story or twist my decisions into failures. And as I watched my father scrub the stain from the rug he'd laughed over the night before, a dark satisfaction settled over me. This wasn't revenge in the flashy sense. It wasn't shouting or screaming or throwing them out. This was quieter, stronger, forcing them to face what they'd done and making sure they knew exactly whose house they stood in. When the last bottle was thrown out and the rug was finally clean, I stepped forward, my voice steady. "Thank you for cleaning up. Now get out." They stared at me, stunned. I said, "Get out," I repeated, firmer this time. "Until you learn to respect me, you don't belong here." And with Daniel at my side, I watched them shuffle out the door, pale and silent. For the first time in years, I felt untouchable. I thought it was over. I thought that after forcing them to clean my house and sending them out the door, they'd finally understand boundaries. But 2 nights later, my phone lit up again. This time with a text from Megan. "We're coming. Over tomorrow for dinner. Don't overreact. We're still family." My chest tightened, anger bubbling hot. They hadn't learned a thing. In their minds, this house was still theirs to invade whenever they pleased. Daniel was beside me when I showed him the message. His eyes hardened. "They don't understand words, Lauren. They understand actions. This time, we make it final." The next evening, instead of setting a table, I set my laptop on the counter. I typed quickly, pulling up the footage from the security cameras. The party, their laughter, their arrogance. Every angle, every careless word captured in crisp detail. At our 7 sharp, the knock came. Jason, Megan, Linda, and Thomas filed in like they owned the place. My stomach knotted, but I stood tall. Daniel lingered behind me, calm, collected. "Dinner?" Megan asked, forcing a smile. "Not tonight," I said flatly. "Tonight we're watching something else." I turned the laptop around. The video played instantly, Jason tossing his beer onto my couch, Megan smirking with her glass, Linda laughing as if nothing mattered, Thomas bragging in the living room. The room went silent. Their faces drained of color as the evidence looped in front of them. Every ugly truth, every ounce of disrespect caught on camera. "You broke into my house. You threw a party. You trashed everything I worked for. And then you acted like I was the problem," I said, my voice steady but trembling with fury. Jason stammered, "Lauren, you don't need to—" "Quiet," I snapped. "You all lied for years. Told me I was reckless, irresponsible, a failure. But when I proved you wrong, you tried to take it from me. This," I pointed at the screen, "is who you are when you think I'm not looking." Linda's eyes welled up, but it wasn't guilt. It was fear. "Lauren, don't do this. Don't show this to anyone." Daniel stepped forward, his voice low, final. "That's the point. We don't need to. Because you've already exposed yourselves. And from this moment on, you will never treat Lauren like she's beneath you again. Ever." Thomas's face reddened, but he couldn't argue. Not with the footage playing, not with Daniel standing there, not with me holding the power for once. I crossed my arms. "Here's the deal. You respect me, you respect this house, or you never step foot here again. There are no second chances left." The silence that followed was heavier than any shouting match could have been. Jason avoided my eyes. Megan's defiance had vanished, her arms folded tight across her chest. Linda wiped at her face, nodding weakly. And Thomas, my father, the man who once laughed at my every dream, stared at the floor, his pride shattered. Finally, I said, "Now leave." They didn't argue this time. One by one, they slipped out the door, the weight of the cameras and my words hanging on their shoulders. When the door shut behind them, I collapsed into a chair, my body trembling. Daniel wrapped his arms around me, steady, warm. "You did it," he whispered. "You finally stood up to them." Tears pricked my eyes, but they weren't from sadness. They were from release. Years of ridicule, years of dismissal, years of feeling small. It ended here. That night. As I sat on my clean couch in the house I bought with my own sweat and sacrifice, I realized something important. Revenge hadn't been the real victory. It was reclaiming my worth, showing them I wasn't the failure they painted me to be. This was my house, my life, my rules, and for the first time in years, I felt free.